That's it. All right, we'll call this meeting to order and Pledge of Allegiance is first on the agenda.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I don't see any presentations, no public hearings, adjustments to the agenda. Bob, I believe you have,
We've got three. We'd like to move 10-3, 10-4, and 11-2, even though 11-2 is old business, up to the position of 10-1, and then carry on down after that, because Max has a meeting to go to, and we need him for those three items.
Yes, we do.
is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor? Do you have another one, Bob?
Executive session.
Executive
Ah.
session?
Sorry, yes, and I guess we should probably have that after.
Yes.
Yep, so,
And I put that on the agenda as number 12.
okay. 12 is executive. And you got the
He'll have the
number,
site
you'll
for
have the
that.
site for that. Did you have something, John, as well?
Yeah, I like to make, I like to, it'd probably be new business.
Yeah.
To begin a little discussion about the HVAC and the report we received from the energy auditor.
We'll make that like 10-5.
Yes,
Yeah.
John's here for it.
10-5, okay. Is there a second?
Next.
Any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor? Is that all of the adjustments? Okay. All right, we'll move right along. Citizens' comments. Uh-oh,
Yes, stopwatch.
2 minutes.
Maxwell Waldeboro Historical Society, in case nobody has heard. They found the time capsule that was placed in the high school when it was built in 1935. And it will be opened on Waldeboro Day. We're at the recreation facility where they're gonna have all the festivities that day at 5 p.m. and hopefully you all be there. Thank you.
Cool.
That was 27 seconds.
A record. Any other citizens' comments?
Hi, I'm Kay Whitner, and first thing I wanted to say is every time there was a snowstorm, that had been a lot this year. I was so excited that every time I went out to drive around, there was no problem, so good job with the plowing. Having said that, I'm here tonight. I don't want to say expert, but I spent a great deal of time and effort when I lived in Reading, Massachusetts, and I was on the Solid Waste Committee, trying to get the town to adopt the pay-as-you-throw program. So when I heard you were discussing that tonight, I said, wow, I gotta go and give you what happened to us. And I didn't know if you wanted me to discuss that now or wait till the appropriate time. I'm glad to wait.
I would probably wait.
Yeah, I'd love to.
That's
yeah,
okay,
I'd
but I
like
just wanted to make sure you knew I was sitting here dying to say something.
I'd love to get you on the transfer station committee too.
Okay, any other citizens' comments? Seeing none, we'll move along. Select board comments. Bob,
I have nothing.
John?
Just a couple quick things, like Mr. Maxwell mentioned, we now have a Waldeboro Day Committee again for this year, all set up. We've had, second meeting, I am not the chair. Erica St. Peter is the chair this year, and our second meeting last night, she came in with all kinds of great information. It's gonna be June 15th, which is a traditional time we do our Waldeboro Day, so the committee looks forward to putting that together for the town. They're always looking for volunteers to help out. They need some extra volunteers, and extra hands. The next meeting is March 4th, at 6 p.m. here. So anyone out there that wants to help us out or help out the committee. And I'm sure the committee will be coming to the town and passing the word, says, I'm sure the town's gonna support everything that the Waldeboro Day does. Right, Johnny?
Is that it?
No, one more thing, sorry.
I thought.
Don't forget, this Thursday, RSU 40, just a reminder, folks, is their school board meeting and a facilities meeting. They'll be discussing at the facilities meeting at 4 p.m. up in Union. One of the things they'll be talking about is how they're gonna get some funding or work out the funding plan to get a lot of these upgrades done that they need, and participation and people watching and listening is something that's gonna be needed. That's at 4 o'clock at the central office in Union.
Cool.
I'll be there.
So, Mike,
I'll be there and I have nothing to.
I don't have anything, like,
town manager report.
Sorry, can
Sure.
I say something? I apologize.
Go ahead, Bob.
A little too late here. I thought Mike would mention it, but since he didn't, I will.
Okay.
We had a wonderful visit up at
Oh,
the
yes.
American
Oh.
Nuggies. Met with Sarah Rademacher and talked to her about what they're doing. They're employing, what, 17 people now in that facility?
All dedicated, very happy
Yeah.
employees too.
Yeah, and it was just really interesting. And I hope if you ever have the chance to get up there and see what's happening, it would be great. And one other thing I wanted to mention, I drive by it practically every day, that shop on the corner of Main Street and Jefferson. And I'm concerned about the fact that it's been vacant for so long. I've heard that there are rats in that facility now, that there has been water leaking. I know the water's been shut off now. That parts of the roof are possibly decaying and maybe dangerous now. And I really am hoping our CEO can go over there and have a look.
Okay.
I know someone who's got a key to get in, so. Yeah, it's
okay, I
been
know
sitting.
you're talking about now, yeah.
Where are they?
It's the across from the professional building,
The old pizza shop.
the old pizza shop. Sorry.
That's it. Now on to you.
Now on to
Yep.
me. AD Gray is no longer the town of Waldboro's. It has officially transferred over to Volunteers of America. Just wanted to report that.
Kudos.
6 years, 8 months, 28 days. I was assigned that. I was assigned that when I first got here. Was on that big, remember that big list of Julie items? 6 years, 8 months, 28 days. There's still stuff on that list. I'll get to it. The budget, I've completed the first draft. We finished the transfer station budget today. We're already putting stuff in. The books will be out on time. So it's going to be a great budget season. And I'm excited. A lot to talk about, a lot of big things to talk about, services, capital funding, capital projects. So everybody knows it's my favorite time of the year. Most important time of the year for the town is March, when we have our budget committee meetings and our select board meetings together. Everybody thinks that select board meetings, that's the bee's knees. Budget committee is where it is. Because the budget committee, in conjunction with the select board, that's where the decisions are made to fund things. So that's really the most important time of the year for the town. So I'm excited about that. I wanted to mention that I did place the RSU 40 link on the website for the last meeting, the request at our last meeting. And my final fun fact is we were invited to, I was invited to, along with other town managers, to have a discussion up at RSU 40 about the situation of some homeless students in the district. Most of you probably read in the Lincoln County News, there was an article about some out of the box thinking that the school has. So I will be attending that. And I imagine if any of you wanted to come, any of the board members would like to come with me, you are more than welcome to come and listen to what they have to say. So hopefully we'll find out more information about
When
that.
is this?
I believe it's the
27th.
27th.
Send me an email.
I
or
will
something.
send you an email to that. And I also just wanted to echo Kay's remarks. We've gotten a lot of great comments about the snow plowing this year, which is great. And I also wanted to address one thing that was on Facebook. People were talking about the Route One bridge and the last time it was inspected. So it was inspected during the last giant flood event that we had, and I can't remember the date, but it was recently. They did come down during that storm to inspect it, and they are aware. So I just want everybody to know, because it took its own life on Facebook before anybody actually got in touch with us, but that is where we stand with that. And again, that's a DOT bridge, so any concerns should go to the DOT. That's it.
Consent calendar. Somebody like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make that motion.
Is there- Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, all right, new business. Max, we shall move you up and we'll start with the community center discussion.
Really that one first. Oh. Is this height? Hello everyone, Max Johnstone, town planner. Community center has been something that we've been talking about, the town's been talking about for quite some time. And at the last planning board meeting in January, Maine Health made a pre-application which noted that they were going to reserve and potentially donate a portion of that land to the town that could be used for a community center. So there's always already been a lot of interest on what that's going to be. Plan is going to be having some forums in the future. I'm already starting to coordinate something on at least childcare, and we want to talk with some recreation nonprofits and others to see what people are interested in for this community center. Some people may remember back in the general election of 2020, that while that was a presidential election, there were some far more important items, non-binding items being voted on that time. And one of them was talking about if people would be open to having a loan, the town taking out a loan to help pay for a potential community center. Well, that was 4 years ago, believe it or not, as depressing as that might sound. And times have changed. So we want to make sure that if we are going to put forward a potential loan that the town would have to take out for the community center, we want to have something that's well thought out and well prepared and that people are comfortable actually putting forward. Now, with that said, town doesn't have anything for a community center right now. There is that $1 million grant, and that's going to do the site work over at 126 Depot Street. But the budget, I can't speak for the budget. Julie will have to vouch on this one. My recollection, the budget committee is not going to be talking about putting money towards the community center. I don't think there's any money for the community center. It's just the site work right now that's paid for. And we just need to talk with people about getting some designs put together. Julie, have I forgotten something?
So if you'll recall, back in 2020, it was about building a gym and office space and community room and a kitchen in case there were winter events, because right now we have no place, we have no shelter if everybody's electric goes out and it's 30 below. So a lot of that was thought out and presented, and we listened to the at one of the community forums that there was a need for a community center. What that looked like in 2019 to what it looked like in 2024 could be significantly different. The food pantry has come forward and said they'd like to be a part of it. Head Start has always expressed an interest in being part of that facility. Our community navigation program would probably be housed in that building. And I think that that conversation, at least, you know, our recreation committee made a recommendation of what they thought should be in it. So I think we have to, like Max said, gather again all of the interested parties and have a conversation and decide that maybe the priorities have changed since 2019, and we need to get public engagement on that to make sure that we're creating something that the town wants and would support. And I think it's important too to note that we did get the $1 million grant for the infrastructure and the site work, but we would have to apply for more grant funding and potentially more congressionally directed spending funds to even begin the conversation. And this will be a very well-publicized, open, transparent process. And it's something that the town would have to vote on. Any type of money that would be borrowed or even put into the project would have to be voted on. And I would not anticipate that until most likely the November election, because as this select board has in the past, decisions like spending money on something that large would be something you'd want to get the most voter turnout for, and that obviously will be the 2024 presidential election. So that's the timetable that Max and I are working on. And again, it would be in phases most likely. And I think that's what the public would want to see. Is it phased? It's just a matter of what phase would go first and what services does the community want and what services does the community need. And again, we've had a wonderful partner in Maine Health. We have that opportunity now to be co-located at 126 Depot. And one of the beauties of that site is it gives us access to the river, that side of Route 1. And some wonderful recreation opportunities. If anybody's ever had the chance to paddle upriver, that's right, that's upriver. Well, it is some of the most beautiful spots in the town of Waldeboro. And there's a not so friendly beaver that lives there. He didn't like me. Will was there that day.
Yeah.
Will and I and a member of the Shellfish Committee paddled up there to check out what was the river. We were trying to find a source of pollution and we thought perhaps it was the beaver. So these two gentlemen go up and over the beaver dam and paddle on, and I'm stuck there and this beaver starts smacking his tail and making sounds at me, and he was not a happy camper. But anyway, that's where we are with the community center, and people are excited about hearing it. Again, we have to cut our pattern to the size of our cloth. And we have to be very mindful of the current situation that our taxpayers face. And they should be I'm hoping that they will be very vocal and involved in the process.
I think what I'll just add to that is that popped in my mind. Right now, while we do have an idea for what we might be getting for a footprint, it's going to be dependent on what Maine Health gets approved by the planning board first. They're still in that process. Maine Health hopefully will be breaking ground, I think, in the fall is what they said. But depending on what they get approved for, our footprint could change. So that's just something to keep in mind. Because I know everyone will probably say they have a lot of ideas for what they want in the community center. We're not going to build the Taj Mahal. We're not probably going to build anything bigger than what you've seen already in town. So for some expectations, I'd say. And this isn't going to be built next year or anything. It's going to take time.
It's going to take time. And again, there's a lot of organizations that are like, oh, we want to be part of it. And, we have to also, we love partnerships, but most partnerships, that means you come with some funding too. So we have to work all of those wonderful things out. But we are excited because it's movement.
John?
Will November 2024 will be time enough to do all the prep stuff and in order to get?
Well, we're hoping.
Are we?
We gotta try. Well, because and my theory was, let's present 3 ideas, not so much the funding, but maybe have a question that says, rank these 3 ideas in the order that you like. So for some, having a giant space where you could do exercise classes and have a meeting room might be more important, say, than, and I hope Marcus doesn't hurt me, a gym. If we already have 2 gyms in town, is a gym as important as people thought in 2019 as it is now? So those are the types of questions we have to ask. And then, we're hoping that the residents come back and give us good feedback. And then through these forums and all of this, we can then come up potentially, again, with 3 ideas, which one do you favor? And hopefully have maybe some cost attached to that. And then the following town meeting, then maybe start talking about funding. So I'm hopeful that Maximilian worth $1 billion gets us all kinds of grant money. Then there it is. Because he's been awesome at that so far.
Any other questions? Seeing none. We'll move along. The Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund.
So the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund is a grant that we've applied for, I think, at least twice in the past for 4 different projects. It's been used for the kayak launch that's at the rest area in the summer. It's been used for the alewife counter that's below the Mill Street Bridge. Multi-use trails being built up at Quarry Hill, and actively purchasing a drone for Shellfish Warrant for some conservation projects. This time, I'd like to apply again for a capacity study that Julie and I have been working with Forest Bell Environmental. This would be a $16,300 grant, and we would be using $8,700 from our tip account as a match. And this is to just Julie's usually better at explaining it.
So the capacity study is to do a study of the river that will tell us what species are in there. What can we handle? And this all stemmed from the aquaculture study. Well, aquaculture debate about oysters and clams. And we're hoping that through FB Environmental and in conjunction with Damian Brady from UMO, who knows the river well, because that's how we got Gabby Hillier, who did the flow study of the Madomic. Both FB Environmental and UMO have been instrumental in the water quality issues and a lot of the other issues that the Shellfish Committee has studied. And it's to get an idea of what native fisheries we have here and what can our river sustain and keep healthy. So that would be what the capacity study is for. And this might take a while. And we might have to ask the DMR because the major question that the Shellfish Committee has had is, can oysters suspended in the way that they are farmed now coexist with soft shell clams, which is a industry in Waldoboro that sustains over 100 families. So their concern is it possible that the oysters could change how the river produces clams? And Damariscotta River is frequently pointed to as, at one point, it had both clams and oysters, and now it has no clams. But in order for us to make any type of argument to the DMR about this, we need to have some information of what do we have right now? What does it look like? What can we handle? And what might the future look like? So that's a big study, and there's a lot of science involved in that. So we might have to ask the DMR to give us like a 5-year window of, can our river stay pristine, at least our portion of it, and give us time to study that and then move on from there based on what we discover in the study.
Paul?
I think this is a great idea. I wonder, though, whether or not at some level we can participate in the questions we would like the study to answer. Don't know whether the answers would be in the budget of the study or not, but certainly there are more questions involved here.
I gave you just a brief overview, but yes, we can.
Okay. That's one request I would make before we settle down with the contract with these guys.
There was one thing brought up, Julie and I was invited to a meeting and an individual from South Bristol brought up a really good point. People said that oysters and clams always coexisted, always have, but they were on the bottom. They're not on the top. They were never on the top. So that's a big change compared to what it used to be 100 years ago to now. And I didn't even think about it that way.
Suspended, yeah.
Yeah, they're suspended now, so that's a huge change in the way they're harvested now.
And we may want to consider, and this was pointed out by the DMR representative, that we could pursue a legislative avenue to have at least our portion of the Madomic protected in some way legislatively for however long of a period we might need for this. If the DMR doesn't see fit to do it by rule, I guess that can be done by rule. And there's been there's a river, Jordan River.
Yep.
They mentioned the Jordan River and also the Great Salt Bay right in Damariscotta. So I'm doing some research on that. And that's where we're at. And I just want to thank Cameron, Rennie and Abden. They were a part of the meeting and it was great to have a lot of concerned. They basically wanted a representative. They had a public representative. They had one or two representatives from each town. And it was a good meeting and a lot of good ideas came out of it. It was even suggested, they even had a representative from the MMA, Rebecca Graham. I think it was Rebecca Graham. Who was there, and she had a great idea, like, we should maybe start treating these licenses just like we treat the alcoholic beverage licenses, so that it comes before the board. We can hold a public hearing locally if we would like to. So there was a lot of good that came out of that.
I'm hoping that we don't commission this study with an axe to grind. It's
No,
gotta be scientifically valid.
but that's,
Don't want it to prove our point.
well,
I want them
that's,
to establish the facts.
again,
Hear what you're saying.
right, that's why, and I'll be honest with you, it's been difficult to find the right mix. And Max and I have struggled on this because, everybody brings up the Darling Marine Center. The problem is the scientists at the Darling, more often than not, scientists at the Darling Marine Center have an interest in an oyster farm. That's very hard to overcome.
Yep.
Which is why we had to go to UMO, because I'm sure they're all very scientific and unbiased. However, when you come back, when you have an ownership in something like that, just like people will argue, well, the clammers have ownership in the soft shells. You don't want your scientists to have an ownership in a oyster farm. It clouds the waters that we don't want clouded. We want our nice water to be very pristine, wonderful. So,
And if I can add to twist that onto that, it's also been difficult to find an environmental consultant who would take this type of thing.
Right.
They've either said it's settled, we don't want to muddy the waters, or they, as Julie said, just point to Darling Marine and say, they're the ones who handle everything, we don't want to be involved whatsoever.
so FB Environmental has done our septic assessment, and like I said, they've done our water quality. That's who we used to do our testing with when we were doing all the testing in the Madomic. So I think it's a great fit all the way around.
Sorry, I just
No,
had
that's
two more
fine.
points I
Go ahead.
wanted to make. One is that the MMA's congressional delegation is gonna meet with congressmen and senators sometime in the coming month. And one of the things they've been asked to talk about is capacity studies and the absence of them, especially in estuarial waters in Maine. And the idea that they are needed because aquaculture, I think I said this at the last meeting, has become now farming, not just aquaculture, but it's part and parcel of the farm bill that is passed by Congress every so often and funded the same way a wheat farm or a corn farm or a hog farm would be funded. So the criteria, the grant monies and all that stuff that these bills funnel is going to go more insistently to agriculture, to aquaculture, sorry.
And just,
That's money, and that's gonna be a problem.
so this has, our focus sort of has been on oysters.
Yeah.
But fish farms are a little scary too. So, we need to not just, we need to know what native species do we have. And try to work from there and figure out how to protect our native species. And it could be as simple as you could bring something from some other place in Maine that thrives in southern Maine, and it could be detrimental in mid-coast Maine. So we just have to get our heads around that. So,
I had just one other question. It's really of Abden. There is a bill in front of the legislature now, put up by somebody just down south of us along the coast here, to change the way the DMR conducts its public hearings about these leases.
We already had the work session.
Is it gone? Or is
It
it?
went through,
It did
but
go
there
through.
was a lot of changes.
Oh, good.
There was a lot of amendments.
Because they wanted to reduce they want to increase the number of people who are allowed
Yeah.
to test. I mean, it was kind of crazy.
Yep, no, no, we did a lot of changes to that. We made sure the DMR is now notifying the towns in multiple fashions.
Good.
And that's when Julie said that, we want to set up a thing where it's just like the liquor license, that all that stuff comes to the select board. They see fit of whether they notify the public or not. There's a lot of changes to the notifications.
My concern has always been that the DMR has viewed its mission to implement the law, which allows aquaculture. So their story is, well, we're just doing what the legislature told us to do.
Yeah.
But I think the legislature needs to tell them in a different way that
We did.
they don't have to issue these leases. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not necessary to go and bang on
Yeah.
the pavement to issue them.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, it was very well expressed at the public hearing and the work session.
The only thing I just had left for this one is just a quick vote on it, so Julie could sign the letter that I send off for next week.
And that LD number was 2065 though.
I make the motion to approve applying for the grant for the Maine Outdoor Heritage Fund.
Second.
Any more discussion? That was for 16,000.
We're seeking, seeking 16,700, and I think the tip will be using 8,700.
Okay.
And there's more than that.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yeah, you're all set there. Now, on to the Hofstas House, RFP.
So we hit our deadline date and we got one official RFP response, and that is from Ford Enterprises. This was for 58, they are located up in Hope, Maine. The demolition estimate was worth $58,400. That does not include abatement, and they noted in their cover letter that they would like the town to handle that portion. Just because while we are aware of the siting, there was never a study or test done on inside and hazardous materials there. They have a lot of references, different towns and state agencies. I see nothing wrong with that. We did also get a letter from a potential benefactor who would like to discuss with potentially rehabilitating the Hofstas House as it stands and have it remain as a Waldeboro amenity. Exact words to describe it, but finding some way to have the Hofstas House as it stands, just integrated into the long-term plans of potential park. And that's something that if we have both already require, we have to do an abatement. I don't think you have to make a decision tonight on whether to seek the demolition. It's just, again, abatement's gonna have to be done anyways by the town. But I'd recommend just having Julie, myself, maybe one select board member sit down with this potential benefactor to see if there is a route to do this. But that's just my recommendation.
I would ask for 2 select board members to sit down with you and I.
Happy to.
On the Sylvania committee all the time.
Oh, you have your 2 select board members. to sit in.
But just so you know, both want us to proceed with the abatement. So,
I have to get money.
Right.
so Max is
Have
going
you got
to
a
be,
figure of what that's gonna cost?
But I'll have to try and get something.
we're getting it together and we're going to try to do that through grant funding.
Now, the 58,000 for the demolition, the town would have to pay that? Is that what
The
that,
town would be paying
for them to take it down?
for them to take. So it's gonna be 50, so if we go with demolition, it would be 58,400
Okay.
plus whatever the abatement's gonna cost.
I just wanted to clarify that.
And we don't have that number yet, but we're hoping that it would be covered by a grant. Max has been really good about getting abatement grants.
I had to find it somewhere.
Any other questions? Go
No.
ahead.
Would that abatement have to be,
No,
would it have to be bid?
abatement?
Yes.
In the end, yes.
RFP, yeah.
Is there a cutoff if it's under X amount of dollars?
I think I have to talk with, Peg. I think the way it's written is anything, but most towns are usually under 10,000.
Ours is under 10, it's under
Yeah,
10.
but we're going to be amending some of that soon because of what's going on in the world, but it would depend on what the abatement was.
Joan?
I'll just make just a quick comment. This past summer, we started discussing this building. We decided to put out requests from folks who wanted to save it and take it, move it off or demo. The date's come and gone. How long did we deal with 80 Gray? Say it again.
Well, just my experience. Yeah, years.
Do we need to do this again? We didn't, and I think back whenever the discussion of demo and 80 Gray came up a few times, right, Abden? It
Yep.
come A few times,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh,
look
yeah.
what ended up
Brought it up.
happening.
I brought it up many times.
So I,
Don't want to be put in the same position where someone's interested in having the building and saving it for the town. And we'll find out when you have your folks have your meeting. And it goes on and on and on and on. And that area down there looks like the way it looks right now. You drive by there and what do you see? An old abandoned building and a bunch of concrete with shrubs around it.
So part of the.
That's all I'm gonna say.
No, I understand that. I've been here almost, Julie beat me to Waldeboro, but
you're my first hire.
yeah, I've been dealing with the grade almost as long as Julie. About 50.
John's got to speak for 15 years.
We don't want to deal with that house for 15 years.
No.
No, because people are breaking into the man.
But either way, we have to do the abatement because the contractors don't want to take on
Right.
an abatement.
And I
That's
understand.
So it gives us some time to
That's,
meet with the potential benefactor and have a conversation.
And that discussion would just be based on setting some timelines, milestones, similar to what was happening with 80 Gray when Julie and I were getting here, where it was, give a timeline and the person can't make the milestone. Start with moving on to the next project, similar to what we're advocating for. For me, I would say give this benefactor one chance. If they can't meet the milestone, I find them will push it. I won't argue with that.
Mhm.
So we also will discuss this with the Sylvania committee. I wanted it to come to the select board first because it's your RFP we issued. So at their next meeting, we'll also discuss this with them.
any other
That's it.
questions? Seeing none, you are free to go, Max,
I was
with
expecting.
20 minutes to spare.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max, as always.
All
We'll
right.
work on getting that money for everything.
Yeah, I think
And I also just wanted to say, you brought up the concrete. The conceptual plan is with the engineer for the improvements to the Sylvania site. So we should have something. That's it.
just, I'll still be in my room if you need, me to deal with the equipment later.
But
Okay,
go
thank
your
you.
road.
Thank you, Max. All right, moving
Thank you.
along. 10.1. The DMR retention letter for the rights to the river herring
Just-
/ alewives.
This is the annual letter that reserves our right to
Yep.
harvest, and you just need to take a vote.
I move We authorize Julie to sign the letter.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All I can say is I hope we can get the fish counter in before we have heavy rain this year. We had a huge amount of fish go up through that were actually counted. That there was like 125,000 that were actually counted, and there was a bunch before and some after because of all the rain we had. It made it very difficult. So,
And Larry did a wonderful job of setting it up and
Yep.
making sure it was done.
all those in favor, sending the letter? Set there. Transfer station pay as you throw discussion. I would assume that's gotta be under Bob.
Glad that you had a comment about pay as you throw. You may recall back in 2015 or 16. We put this to a town vote, and we lost 80-20. I mean, nobody wanted to talk about pay as you throw. And the transfer station committee put together, probably a 50-page study with numbers and projections about where our budget for the transfer station would be for the next, assuming we didn't do it, well, it's come pretty close to that. 900,000, $1 million a year now.
It's,
for transfer
I will
stations.
tell you the budget that is being, it's over $1 million.
Yep. So if we'd done pay as you throw, we wouldn't have been anywhere close to that because people would have been paying to throw away their garbage instead of having you guys pay for me to throw away my garbage. And that $1 million, that's not my garbage, but it's everybody not being cognizant of the fact that you gotta pay tip fees and you gotta pay transportation to get the garbage out of here to the plant in Hampton, hopefully, or at least to the landfill. So the transfer station committee is asking for a sense of the board. They worked really hard 7, 8 years ago to put this in front of the voters, and we got nowhere because this board, not this board, the board at the time and the town manager weren't supportive of it. And we just feel it would be a waste of time to go and try to do that again without support from this group. The basics of the proposal then, and I'm suspecting that it won't be far different now. There'd be an income means test for people who have difficulty buying the bags. The bags price will be costed based on, correct me if I'm wrong, John, transport and tip fees.
Yep.
And maybe some administrative costs for the transfer station thrown into that. So the idea is that every bag you sell for garbage to be thrown away at the transfer station has a prorated cost that is predicated on the tonnage we expect to move every year. And that price could go up or down depending on the amount of tonnage we move. If the tonnage we move goes down, implication, the price of the bag will go down because we just don't need to move that much. But the cost of the bags isn't going down either, so they cost money too. One of the big problems we had, in addition to lack of support from the town leadership, was lack of support among the haulers. Our read this year is, the committee's read is, the haulers will support this. They will be behind it. And we feel there's a better mix now of realizations about what will happen if we don't do this and do it sooner rather than later. Cushing and Friendship select boards are having the same conversation this month. We'll get together on March 1st and see where we are. But I guess what I'm asking for you, not a vote, just sort of a, yeah, this is worth looking at, or no, forget it. It's a dead end, not worth wasting your time.
Get up and do my
Oh,
history
sure.
speech here. Okay. Been there, done that. Let you know what happened. Okay. Town of Reading, I was on the solid waste committee. Very active committee. We were always getting a lot of pats back from our town management. And we were asked to look into pay as you throw. Our intention was to change the trash versus recyclables because we didn't have very good trash versus recyclables mix. And the trash was costing us tipping fees. The recyclables were not. There were some political problems here. One being that when they wanted to approve a big bond for some school repairs, like 3 or 4 years prior, they put in the trash with it so that they didn't have to pay trash fees anymore. So everyone's mind was now saying, trash is free in Reading, Massachusetts. And in fact, while we were doing the research, we found out a lot of people from North Reading, the neighboring town, were putting their trash bags out in Reading because trash is free in Reading. We kept telling them, trash is not free. We pay tipping fees and we'd like you to change your mind and do more recycling. We did an extensive, like you said, amount of research on how to get people to change their ways. And the biggest thing we found in all the neighboring cities and towns was that once they went to pay as you throw for the trash, people started recycling like mad because they didn't want folks trashing. Now, Reading was a lot different than this town. I just looked up the numbers and we had like 25,000 plus people in 100 square miles, where here it's a lot fewer people and a lot larger. And we didn't have a dump. What we had was haulers that we paid, town paid. And then they took it to where Massachusetts does just about exclusively. They have incinerators where they generate energy. And I think that's a heck of an idea. I don't know why we put our stuff in the land when we could incinerate this stuff and generate energy. But that's neither here nor there. So we did all this research. Our town government was considerably different. We had a select board, but the decisions were all made at the town meeting. It was an elected town meeting because it got too big. And so I was also elected to town. And I'll tell you, it's gruesome doing a budget in a, the high school auditorium with 200 or 300 people having to be on every night. It was a very long and grueling thing, but we got up confident in our ability to explain everything to the town. And got up and I was making this big presentation, PowerPoint, and all this stuff. And it didn't go anywhere. We crashed and burned. They didn't want it. Trash was free in Reading. What were we talking about? We didn't have bags. What the big issues were, like, how are we going to do this? And they were talking about having stickers or some kind of tie on it so that you know that they paid. We're going to sell them at the town hall and also different convenience stores around town. Turns out that some of the neighboring towns, when they've done this, would never have been here, I'm sure, but the people would go out and if they hadn't remembered to have their stickers or their ties or whatever, they took it off to neighbors and then the neighbors say, "I didn't pick up my," it was just, it wasn't as much fun as you might think it would be. Okay. So again, I don't know how you would do it here. It was different. We take our trash right to the transfer station. And I know there are people in town, all of us do that. So you'd have to work out to make sure those little things wouldn't be going on. My bigger concern here was not one that would have happened in Reading, is that, and as landowners with woods that people could just drive up to and throw stuff out, if they decide they don't want to pay it, I can imagine seeing trash and stuff show up on the side of the road, so that would be my concern here. We asked for a vote and we got told that we hadn't done enough research. How did Worcester improve their recycling to throwing out? We said they did a pay as you throw program. Wow, I didn't want to hear that. Okay, so it was just this horrible discussion. No one wanted it, and we were voted down at town meeting. So after that, again, months of work, lots of beautiful polished things, lots of answers to all the questions. They still have one. So if that influences your thinking, fine. I'm just telling you history.
I'm a cockeyed optimist, so I will be even if it gets voted down again. But I do think it's time to make another run at it, given the budget. Sorry, Jim.
John?
It's be the third or fourth time for me.
Yeah.
Hey, through.
This is John Daigle. He's our Director of Public Works and Solid Waste.
I can, pretty bad, I can remember the town was a $50,000 operation. Took care of a lot of businesses and everything. Now, on this budget, we're over $1 million. Having issues. I've been straightforward with these towns. It's very good with these other towns, but money's starting to get tight. Gonna run this operation. Our recycling used to be in the 30s, now we're down 15. Wow. everybody's throwing everything in the trash. It's a lot of money. You know, we're talking down. Just for trash. It's much of the high. This stuff costs. This working on these roads. Look at your road, it's soft and muddy. Guess what? I'm spending more money up the dump than I am on that. It's gotten to a point. Where it's not. Just pennies. Really. expensive. Okay, now I'm looking at friendship and cushion. We're doing it by population. Looking at. The summer population. Much more could be charged, which I'm gonna need your help with, Bob. Because they don't wanna let us know. And the problem is, then, you know me, I'll get upset and then we go different. Like games, that been fair, whatever. We're also looking at charging hauls to bring it in. Liam, really the other ones, these other towns are charging the haulers, bringing in trash for people, $145 a ton. That's what these other towns and cities are doing. We're not. We're trying to be everybody's friend, and it's not working. But it isn't. It has to cut corners, just like last year in the budget. I've tried for years. But I'm at the point right now, it's. Got to the point. Went that pay as you throw. I can pretty much guarantee 500,000 without this budget. And that's just for tipping fees and transportation.
Well, that certainly affects our budget, but that 500,000 is still being made up in the handling, and it's just an accounting issue.
It sure
The
is,
taxpayer either pays it by the bag or they pay it by their property tax.
but I'm not paying for you that's throwing out a truckload of trash. Right now I am. My wife and I generate maybe 2 bags a week, maybe. It's not right. It really isn't. I see old people up there who, even in a pouring rain or snowstorm, they'll be recycling. And I see young people up there come in with a whole truckload. Right? And they'll throw it down the hopper. It's not costing them. You gotta think about that too. We got this thing of low income and fixed income. And I think it's something that should be looked at. Because from what I see at the transfer station, there's a big difference between low income and fixed income. Because I got people who are on fixed income who are recycling, and I got people who are low income who are just coming in with truckloads of trash. Okay, so we got an issue there. Right? Yes, it does. But it's $500,000 off the taxes for the transfer station. Something's gotta be done. Last year, if you turn around and look at the budgets, who cut the most out of the budgets? I did. I always have. But I can't. Now it's gotta be somewhere else. I've been doing this for a year or two. Also, so.
I think the reality is that, and part of this is the other towns, we all share in this. That's what our whole goal was when we renegotiated the contracts. And part of it is, I give John a lot of credit and the staff because they have tried to be very frugal,
Yes, we have.
very frugal. But we're dealing now with 5% increases just in tipping fees plus another $5 a ton, you know, on top of that, and those, you know, that just adds up.
Transportation.
And transportation costs, you know, we're dealing with fuel surcharges. The budget just from 2019 to 2024, as you would expect, everything's went up in the world.
Yep.
The your fuel price goes down, you're still getting fuel surcharge, you know. And we've got a good relationship with the person who hauls our trash. We have a very good relationship and they've been very
Yeah.
fair with us. But I think it's have the discussion. I mean, my opinion is you have to have the discussion and you have to educate the people. In the end, it'll be voted on at town meeting. But I think you do have to give the people the option.
Our research showed completely that it did change people's habits. They started recycling once you paid it.
Yes.
Question is, are plastics other than number 2 still being accepted again by recyclers?
No,
This-
but that's not the problem. The other plastic, I was only getting, you know, trying to. I'm a year. I'm not talking, I ain't worried about 20 ton, I'm worried about 4,000 ton. That we're paying over $100 a ton. Just to ship something. Say that, well, the recycling changed. People's habits change. I can tell you how long. Years ago, we were doing the other plastics. It's always been 10, 20 ton, that's nothing. I'm talking about the 4,000 ton that you're really paying.
We're actually above $90 now for the
Oh, yeah.
tip and fee.
Including the transport.
No, transport is extra. It's just $90 a ton to dump.
7, 50.
And then add 5% on. That goes into, because remember, in our budget, we have to plan for 2 different prices. So 2 quarters is the lower price, 2 quarters is then the 5%, because that's what they're going up. So we're above 90 just for the tipping fees. And transportation per run is about 505. $505.
So instead of every
Per
time
load.
that trailer goes out, $2,000. See it go buy your house 4 times a week, you're gonna be up 3,000, 3,500.
Well, we talked a lot about, you recall this, we talked a lot about behavioral economics back when we did this the first time.
Yep.
And people have to start paying for something, they pay attention to what they're doing. If they get it for free, they don't care.
But I think
They may
the,
not care anyway.
but
I
the,
mean,
but the people need to have the information so that they can make an informed
they
decision.
will.
John?
That's, I'll tell you right now, when the last time I went to vote, I think I voted no.
Mhm.
Cause I really didn't understand it all, but in the last couple of years, I really started to understand it.
Yep.
And absolutely. Need to put this back to the voters and get the word out and publicize it. I don't think Facebook was as common as it is now, so maybe it'll get out more.
And I don't, you know,
I
Well,
know you don't, but a lot
what
of
would
these
be
people.
really good is that could be one of the questions that is binding in the 2020 and the 2024 November election.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and that gives us time, hopefully your committee time to prepare and get the word out. And like, we probably didn't have the website like we do now, where you
Right.
can just go on there and look and say, okay, here's a 1-pager. It tells you what we're facing. Just so you're aware, we budgeted to continue as we are right now because we didn't have a choice. So,
As everyone drives through transfer
Hand 'em a-
station, they hand them a brochure.
Mhm.
Are they gonna read it? They'll probably just throw it out the window.
recycle it.
They'll recycle
No,
it.
they won't recycle it, they'll throw it in the trash.
You've done it, exactly.
Turned around, I've had 12 guys up
Yeah.
Okay, that we were unloading people, stuff, people were upset, 'cause we was unloading, that we ripping their bags. Up. We've done all that. We're at this point. You know, I've been through all that.
I hear you.
And there is some states. Now making it mandatory.
Yep.
There's some states that do that whole state.
There is, yeah.
But we wouldn't be in such bad shape. We weren't importing it as well. From other states.
That stopped. Big bad, that stopped. Hopefully,
Okay.
but anyway, it's your time, but that's up to you. You know,
Okay.
I'm not. Holding back no more, we need a trailer, I'll put in for a trailer.
I just have two comments based on our experience, because we were that kind of group, we went out and looked at what the rates were of trash and for time of years, what we feel like the trash. bin. And I guess the first one, we found the biggest amount of weight was right after Christmas. But it peaked over the summer. Now, I don't think you probably have this problem here, but we were dead sure of lawn waste and stuff. There's no point of that going on. So if anyone's doing that, stop that, I think, too. So that's point one. Point two is we spent a lot of time, I personally spent a lot of time, we made up a booklet that we then walked around, distributed to every house in writing on where they could take their stuff. So you probably have times where you like want to get rid of an old couch or something, you don't know what to do with it. It's had listings for everything that you had about where you could take it, what you could do with it, other than taking it. So that's something to just think about. If you have volunteer.
Just two more. A comment, a question. The question is, we're gonna need to generate some updated numbers. We got a lot of our support when we did this the last time through McCann. I don't think they're even available in the South. So we're willing to do the grunt work. But we have to make phone calls and represent that we are calling on behalf of the towns of Waldoboro, Cushing, and Friendship. Does this board have a problem with that?
You're talking about municipal review,
Talking about getting information from other towns. Practically every town around us does pay as you throw. Like a little island in the middle. We need to contact them and get information from them about the effect on their budgets. Of what it meant to shift, make that shift from what they had to pay as you throw.
If you want, you can even come in, we can set you up on a
Okay,
table.
okay,
You could use the
Thank you.
phone.
all right. The other thing, I'm trying to remember what it was, sorry, senior moment here. I'll think of it later, it's not that important, I can't think of it.
You have something else? Mike?
Yeah, I was looking for an update about MRC. Is MRC accepting waste at the resource recovery
It's
facility?
accepting pilot waste. It's running tests on the composition of the garbage that's being delivered there by select towns that are close by, so transportation costs are minimized. They're doing about 10 or 12,000 tons a week. Making sure the MRF is operating properly, separates the garbage from the recyclables.
Mhm.
And they're looking at the composition of the recyclables to see what part of that can be anaerobically digested. They're really interested in producing renewable natural gas. The pipeline runs like 20 feet away from the plant. It's right there. They can tap right into it and feed the pipeline or energize the plant with it. But they really are, these guys are being really careful. They don't want to spend money unnecessarily. They don't want to start an operation that's have problems at startup. So they're being very, very careful. And the hope is that by 2025, maybe first quarter, they'll be accepting trash from all of the 115 member towns that own that facility.
So is that going to result in reduced tipping fees for John?
No, but it might result in some profits that we benefit from because we own part of that plant.
Well, they're really not gonna see profits, because plus we lost our credits. That was only good for 3 years, so. See. Profit.
Well, as 10% equity holders, the group has 10% equity holders in the plan.
Yeah.
We have rights to any profit defined in the ways.
We might get a rebate.
We'll get something. I'm sure we will. I think that plan is gonna work. And they're gonna do other things, not just with garbage. They'll be looking at other things too. Tires, mattresses, that kind of stuff.
Okay, everyone all set?
So my read is,
That's why I was gonna try to get a read. Do you want the do you want the transfer station committee to pursue?
I make the motion, the transfer station pursues the necessary data required to present to the town on pay as you throw.
Or a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. The transfer station committee has their marching orders.
very new.
All right, we'll move along.
1.5
Yes.
with the HVAC.
Yeah, 10.5, the HVAC conversation, and I believe John's front and center.
I made
Yes,
John
so-
front and center.
Well, Can I take the lead on this? John,
I'm
if you
sure
don't
John will
mind?
be very happy.
You don't mind? Not that I know anything of particularly about HVAC, but I know about the
How
RFP.
about a joint venture?
We haven't got an RP yet.
That's just it. That is the key. When this came up at, I guess it was back in December, I suggested that we get a biddable set of documents so that we could bid out the HVA system here in the office. And was, I was really upset that Max was wearing t-shirts to work because it was so hot. And it wound up growing in maybe work that definitely needed to be done, in that there was there were a lot of inefficiencies in this office. We've got fluorescent lights here. We should be using LEDs. There's lots and lots of places to save energy here. But that deliverable hasn't been delivered yet. When is it going to be delivered?
So
That's what we're trying to do.
that's what John's gonna talk about, because
Okay.
there's more than one way to skin a potato.
Okay,
As I said, and I know John's gonna probably step on my, but I want to get this up. Yes, we got this report dated February 8, 2024. Just like Mike said a month or so ago, we were discussing HVAC and efficiencies and energy, and the comment was made, well, let's get a good idea of what we have here in this building. So the board approved John Monahan, who is a lead certified energy auditor and engineer, to come in and came in and did this audit, and we just got the report. I spent the weekend reading the report and trying to digest the report, and it's by no means, it's not an RFP yet. But bear with me while I read some of my comments. I started off by saying, I've read this report, although this report could seem overwhelming on the initial view, I find it actually quite interesting. Kind of nerdy of me, isn't it? It's full of good information for the town. It would certainly serve as a roadmap for the town to improve the energy efficiency within the municipal building. This roadmap could be used on several trips versus taking one trip at a time. I look at it like how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We can't look at this as something we have to digest right now. I broke it down into 4 sections as John Monahan did. He talks about the building envelope, domestic hot water distribution, lighting and electrical, HVAC, and you can break that HVAC down to energy recovery systems. In short, I worked as I was an installation project manager for 14 years for an HVAC company. So this is why I kind of got into this thing and enjoyed it. It's been a few years, I've been out of the industry, but a lot of the stuff was coming back. The easy stuff, domestic hot water, John recommends that we get rid of that oil fired water heater, which I certainly agree with that, and I don't understand why we put it in back then, but we did anyway. Get rid of that. And when it was being put in, I wasn't on the select board, but I was involved in town stuff, and trust me, I said my piece on it. That thing needs to go. John Monahan recommends heat pump water heater. Certainly agree with that to cover this side of the building. Takes a long time for that hot water to get to the other side of the building, the fire department. That's what he talks about in here. He talks about point of use, hot water heaters under the sinks over by the fire department. I'd like to have some more discussion on that because he didn't mention the shower over there. He didn't mention the equipment, wash machine over there or the utility sink. There is a little bit more demand for hot water, so we could discuss another option, which we have. But definitely on this side of the building, get rid of that oil fire water heater and put in a heat pump water heater, as long as that space in there will work, because you need 1,000 square feet, cubic feet for those to work, because they will fail if they don't have the air they need. Another thing he talked about wasn't easy, but he talked about the building envelope. Tighten up the building. He talked about doing some renovations to the fire department and taking off that grid ceiling and putting up sheetrock and then re-insulating above it, because there's a lot of wasted heat and space up there. Good in theory, but when this building was built in 1977, were those trusses engineered to hold 5/8 fire rated sheetrock? Probably not, and I think John will attest to the fact that it wasn't. You put all that sheetrock on there, you're gonna have a ceiling on the floor. So let's look at some other ways to tighten up that space. Just like any good homeowner, you're gonna wanna go around your house and look for where you're losing your heat. Cold's coming in, your AC is going out in the summertime, and which is a great tool to tighten up those spots. Another thing you talked about was lighting, like you said. I could recall a few years ago, actually it's 2017 with my perk, that we did have a quote, an RFP went out to redo all these lights. As we did the fire department got done with the T8s, which is T8 bulbs, which at that time was a very efficient bulb. But we did in 2017, we had a quote sitting in front of the board to upgrade all these lights. However, due to budget constraints, it didn't happen. Didn't happen. So that was, as well as lights outside the building, a few lights. Also in this audit, he discusses the biggest part of the elephant is the HVAC. Now, it was kind of interesting to see some of his comments in it, talking about type of equipment he recommends. Because prior to even reading this audit, I've had some consultation and some conversations with some of my former colleagues in this business, and they were talking about the exact same equipment he's talking about. The variable high energy heat pumps, to be variable high flow heat pumps, refrigerant heat pumps. They didn't have that technology when I was doing it, when I was in it, but now they're seeing it more and more in these type of buildings. Certainly encourage going out for something like that. It would get rid of these. You would get rid of these air handlers that are above the ceiling. They'd be gone. Yep. You put these things in, they're operating down to -17 below zero. Efficiencies are there. The energy is far less. The control system, we could probably do away, because we're not gonna need the control system to control those things, because those air handlers are coming out. Everything's done with simple thermostats. You don't need all that stuff if you were to go with these variable heat pumps. So I guess in a nutshell, I would certainly use this, like I said, as a roadmap, how we can be more efficient. I think priority, just my thoughts, is HVAC on this side of the building. Because what happened last summer, we had portable AC units around here, we had cords around here, with water dripping out of the ceiling. It wasn't very efficient.
I'm tired of emptying the 5-gallon bucket from the portable air conditioners.
I mean, there's other things that he put in that I found quite interesting too, which I put in this letter, but I don't want our board to want to read everything in there, but, I think.
So I think we
it's
have
good.
to have a conversation at the next meeting about what we want to tackle first.
Right, yeah, what we want to tackle first, and then we need to figure out the RFP. We need to get an RFP, and this is an RFP. There's several RFPs could be included in this, but the priority being what we as a board or town feels should be the priority.
So the priority would be HVAC on this side. Well, I don't know.
That's up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, your priority
I've
wouldn't
been
be,
Through this before too. This is back when they had the committee,
right,
that's when the
oil fire water heater went
and that's where
Yeah.
this stuff went haywire. Which is cool, but then you don't have anybody directly in the town
Right,
run it. That's where you run into problems. And I remember was in a meeting, I come in and Julie was in a meeting, Mike was there, and everybody's talking about the air conditioning. There's more to it. And you should know that. We got the air ventilation, you got to change the air and everything else. There's a lot more than just setting them up. You do have to change the air in this area. The other issues with the hot water, you gotta remember now, the ambulance department is doing laundry.
Mhm.
They're using a lot of hot water to disinfect, so I'm not sure whether that will be enough hot water for them. The other thing is the fire department in there, it will not handle that load. 5/8 sheet rock, 4x8 sheet is 70.4 pounds per sheet. It will not. There's just no way. The only other option you have out there is spray insulation, okay? That's 3 times the cost of regular insulation. There's a lot you have to look at. But everything that I've seen, and I was with him the days he was going through this stuff. I was with him overhead. I mean, you guys can make all kinds of decisions, but if you don't look up overhead, you don't know what's going on. It doesn't help, everything that I've seen, this end of the building should be taken care of first. There's more people in the average day than anywhere else in the building. But you are gonna have to take steps. But, you guys can sit there and get all this information, come up with these ideas. That's fine. But you really need somebody to look into this stuff. That's how I feel about it. We went through it the last time.
And I just want to say too, Public Works did address some of the issues that went as they found them.
Yeah.
They spent 2 days going through and fixing and tightening up some of the areas that needed to be tightened up.
And the problem was with them areas, there's different contractors that are coming in here doing some work. All right, but nobody's after the contractor, finish your job, fix it. I mean, hold right up top, you don't do that. But if that's how you guys wanna run it, do it that way.
I think that should be assigned to Public Works from here on out, under buildings and grounds.
There is a separate,
I'm not gonna play games.
my understanding, and I don't have the contract in front of me, but my understanding that there was two parts of this program. One was the energy evaluation, but there was a specific lump of money for
Mhm.
the
The actual RFP.
the RFP for the office end of the building.
Right.
We haven't seen that yet. We saw that
Next
report,
time.
but we haven't
Yeah.
seen that.
Takes
So I'm
time.
asking, when are we gonna get it?
Takes time.
Yeah.
Just got this done, when I was here with him,
Yeah.
it can't happen.
And
just
part of
like
what
that.
he wanted to do is come back and finish the blower test
Yes.
for the fire department. But
Upset.
there's no sense in him coming back and
Yep.
finishing for just the fire department side. Because we can't. The repairs needed there, we can't accomplish with our public works department, so. I think it's fair, I can go back to him and say, do this side. Now and give us the RFP for that
For the HVAC and heat recovery ventilation side.
only, yes.
Yeah, we don't need to chase that lighting issue right now, even though we're gonna at some point.
The
Right.
light has been upgraded. They're all TH now.
Yeah, right.
All right, so. I
And there's a
mean,
quote out
yeah,
there for the LED, just gotta get that updated.
It just changes, you
Yeah,
know, what are we gonna do in 5 years?
Exactly.
And we do have our electrician that, you know, he was gonna give us a price anyway to just do them like bite by bite,
Right.
like eating an elephant. He was gonna eat the elephant, bite it, but you know, when he had time, I can come in and do 4 or
We
whatever.
started on the outside, changed the outside.
Right.
Give us time.
Yep.
you know,
But
that's all it is.
I will ask him about the HVAC
Bob,
this side.
I've read the study too. The guy is good. The guy knows what he's talking about. I don't think anybody at this table can say he doesn't know what he's talking about. We just installed a heat pump water heater. And I can tell you, I mean, the savings, the reduction in usage is palpable, immediate. It's unbelievable. And we've got an oil doing heat and hot water. So my feeling is we ought to go after the low hanging fruit first. I share the sense of urgency about this side of the building. I don't think that one program gets in the way of the other. But I do think that if you're doing blower door tests after you've done work, and you should do them to make sure you've covered your bases, that it's counterproductive not to tighten up the building before you spec and install the HVAC and the ERV. Because they're tied to one another. The less cold air you have to warm because your building is tight, the more efficient your equipment's going to be, and the better spec you're going to have for your ERV and your main unit. That's not to say we couldn't get this done before the end of the summer, assuming the guy does the RFP in the way
Good
he's
luck on getting
indicated.
someone to do it.
Sorry?
Yeah, good luck on getting someone to do it by then.
Well, I
As
thought,
busy as everyone is.
Well,
I would suggest that the guy who does it, does the guy who did this study. John Monahan ought to do that. He and Claire,
How's he gonna install all the equipment?
he's not going to install
I'm
it.
talking about the install.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, no, I'm just talking about.
well, my issue is, I think John addressed the issues on this side of the building.
Yeah.
The infiltration issues on this side of the building.
John Monahan.
No, John
John
Daigle
Daigle.
and
John.
Will, they spent 2 days here fixing things.
Oh, okay,
That's why I said, fix the site.
great. So if we, so now I got.
He
you,
was
John.
speaking French again.
Now you're, it's my ears, not your friend. But we've got a good roadmap here, and I think we're short-sighted
I
not to follow
just
it.
need the RFP.
Yeah,
And then I can go out to vendors.
so John Monahan's doing the
And-
RFP.
This was really necessary. I didn't even realize it, but just last year, they changed I can't say it, refrigerants. EPA has gone to a new
New
refrigerant
one's
now.
coming out, yeah.
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 So we couldn't have just replaced what we have out there in
No.
kind with what we got. We would have had to
Couldn't have.
use a new refrigerant.
Yeah.
So this was absolutely money well spent,
All right.
assuming that we get the.
I'm going to-
so.
RFP, just this side of the building. Where the people are.
Do you need a motion?
I think I have really clear direction.
moving along, the archaeology
Archaeology committee discussion.
committee discussion.
I guess that's Billy or Bob.
Well,
Well, we'll start with Bob.
my recollection is we tabled at our last meeting our discussion about this. And of course, with hindsight discussions, you finally realize, well, if you got something, you gotta have something. So I'm suggesting that we form the committee and let them come back to us with a set of bylaws and explain to us how they intend to make this work and go from there. So it wouldn't be an ordinance. At least not at this point. If the committee wants to recommend an ordinance later on for some reason, then that's their prerogative, but at least we get the committee going and begin to develop awareness of the archaeological sites that are in town, and that may be of interest to the property owners that have them.
What's the deal?
So the bottom line overall goal of this committee is to what now, Bob?
The overall goal is to the committee is to raise awareness of archaeology in Waldeboro and to work with property owners who wish to discover, explore, and possibly preserve, it's up to the property owner, the archaeological sites that they have on their property.
Go ahead.
Not to sound against it, but I'm not, but what's the difference of being a select board nominated committee versus just a bunch of girls and guys get together and say, we're gonna talk about archaeology in Waldeboro?
The difference is that the select board has review and ultimately has jurisdiction. If it's a loosey-goosey group, they've got no frame of reference. They don't even have a town plan to refer to because they're not part of the town. I think it's important that this group be a part of the town in some fashion. And making them a committee that's the select board appoints would help to ensure that.
Isn't that part, is that something in downtown master plan, or one of the plans talks about archaeology?
It does. And in fact, our planning board, when they,
Comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive plan,
Comprehensive,
that's one of
yeah.
the.
there are.
So this supports the wishes of the comprehensive plan.
It certainly does. People have already voted for that, but
Thank
this helps it. Thank you.
Ted wishes, that's what I was looking.
I think the biggest discussion is how is it made up? How many members on the board and
Well, again, I would defer to the committee on that. Given the bylaws they would be developing to define membership. Leaving it kind of open here, but a lot of thought has been put into this by the core group. But the format has changed, so I think they're rethinking how they want to structure it. And for example, they won't be talking about zones necessarily in town, archaeological zones. But they may be referring to other geographical references that.
I'm trying to figure out how all this puts together. We have the Historical Society, which is a huge town asset and well run.
thank you.
And then there'll be the town itself, and then this committee on top of it, as subsidiary to the town, subsidiary of the town. How does that jigsaw puzzle fit together?
Well, the Historical Society, presumably under the bylaws, would have a seat or two on the committee. Not just the Historical Society, you'd have other interested parties involved, maybe some nonprofits who own land and might want to be on it. There might be individuals, there might be historians in town who have an interest in what's going on.
Well, one of the things I asked at the last meeting was whether there were any state or federal laws governing archaeological discoveries on land. And I did a very brief search, and I'm certainly not an expert here, but there is one. It's called the Native American Grave Protection and Repatriation Act. That actually only refers to public lands, specifically excludes private properties. But again, I'm not an expert in this. You know, if somebody should find a Viking longboat remnants in their backyard, almost certainly there's going to be a lot of interest in the town. There'll be a lot of archaeologists wanting to come visit the town and see this device and preserve it. And there could be one very unhappy landowner who is having people traipse through their backyard. I'm not against archaeology, but I just worry whether somebody's toes might get stepped on. And you know that maybe it's town land that they find this Viking longboat on the site of this community
I've
center.
been trying to find a schooner.
They were in Wisconsin, they're gone.
This is all really tough stuff, and I think there's a really good answer to it. You know, it's sort of on the development side, we need housing, and on the other side, there's interest in historic preservation. Where that happy medium is, I just don't know.
Well, that's why you create a committee to resolve the issues.
I think I understand Mike's concern is that this committee would eventually blossom to more of a controlled asset, right? Control.
Well, not necessarily
But-
control, but you know, if you found something, if you find some artifact that really has historical significance on the site here, it's gonna, the people and the neighbors could get really
But it's,
impinged upon.
correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, and this digging is only gonna be done with the approval of the landowner.
Understood.
So
I know it,
you come into my land and you find that Viking ship, I can say, get off my land, I'll take care of the Viking ship myself, right?
Yeah, there's nothing
It- it-
unusual about this happening in England, in Europe. It happens all over the place. People are plowing their fields and they uncover pots of gold.
involved.
They uncover the body of Richard III in public parking lot. I mean, all this stuff goes on. And the point is that if you have in place a value system that honors this, first of all, and secondly, sets up the process. The landowner says no, it's no. You have,
Well, what about unposted land? I don't post my land. I've never posted mine.
I don't either, but nobody comes on my land to dig. Unless maybe they do it and I don't know about it. I mean, that can happen.
People
Yeah,
have
I mean,
dumped
that can
trash
happen.
on our land,
That can
though.
happen.
Bill?
Gonna speak for you, Harbor. Would you? Correct me if I'm wrong. But I've been with Harbor quite a few times when he's dug. And I've dug on 3 different properties. Harbor is very good at keeping it a secret. No, he doesn't let the information out. We dug on a certain selectman's property. It was between me and Harbor where we was digging. And Bob spoke up at the selectman meeting and said, oh yeah, they've been digging on my land. So it's up to the landowner to release that information. Okay, I know where Harbor's digs have been in town, and I won't tell you where they are unless that landowner has given us permission. Bob Butler has given us permission to show the report, say where we've done. Is that right? Yep. Okay.
John?
So realistically, you're not gonna have someone just come on your land, unposted land, and just start digging. If they do, you as a landowner can tell them
That's
to
right. Yeah, yeah.
get off. If they don't wanna get off, then that's a trespass. That's a whole nother.
And to make it personal, if they found a Viking ship on my property, I would invite them in and welcome them with open arms, because I'm curious.
And you charge
I
them.
want to find out.
You charge them $5 fee. Get my Viking ship.
And I want it to be at our historical site. I want it to be on display there. So that's just me. But that's me. I mean, that may not be my neighbor, so,
It may
but
not.
that's my decision.
I don't know, tough call here.
I don't have a problem with the committee as long as they don't have authority above and beyond discussing what they find, who's worked with them, and hopefully pass it on to the select board.
Well, if this is a committee, would be open to the public then. So
Correct.
if they're
Correct.
discussing the Viking longboat, it's gonna get out into the Lincoln County News.
Only if the agreement between the property owner and the committee is that they will allow it to be told in public. They can go into executive session to discuss a matter of this nature. And if it's not to be public, it won't be public.
I do have some questions. I'm Karen Mack, and I'm a resident, professional archaeologist, president of the town of Pearl, and president of the Maine Archaeological Society. I'm curious what the committee's sort of overall intention is. Is it public education? Is it to get the word out in town? And yeah, I guess that's sort of my curiosity of like what the intention of the committee is and then how. I mean, how do you imagine doing that? I guess, how do you imagine doing that? Getting the word out or like,
Well,
or what, and I'm hearing, and I'm just coming in, I didn't hear about it before, so there's not an ordinance. Is that correct? We're not working towards any kind of.
there was a draft ordinance put before the board at the last meeting,
Okay,
and the board wasn't comfortable putting it on the warrant. So we've come back to suggest, well, maybe we'll just, the ordinance called for the creation of a committee.
okay,
The committee would not be a board. It would not have legislative or enforcement powers at all. It was simply there to be a resource. Perhaps archaeologists would be on it, hopefully, especially resident archaeologists.
You just
Um,
volunteered.
It would be all volunteers. We have an historian who's very interested in this work. You know, it's a moment in time. It's a flash of a moment in time. 20 years from now, there may be no interest whatsoever, and this would be defunct. But now we have some really interested people, and Waldoboro, you probably are aware, and as Harbor will tell you, is really unique as a town. I mean, all of the original lot lines are pretty much intact. And these were established along the river on both sides back in the early 18th century. My property goes back to 1736. And we found some interesting stuff there. Nothing valuable. No gold, silver, or anything like that, but it kind of fills in the gaps. It helps you achieve a better understanding of the historical perspective in which the town existed when it was first formed and what people had to deal with. So, some people have an interest in that. Why not develop that? You could develop curricula for the schools if there were groups interested in doing that. The town itself could develop a cachet for being a really early New England town, and with evidence in the museum to support that people will be interested in coming to see. But the purpose of the committee is to develop all of this, to make people aware that there are resources available. There could be grant money available to support some projects that might come up that property owners would find acceptable. There could be other sources of contributions, maybe nothing at all, but the knowledge, the bank of knowledge the committee itself has to make this thing viable and make it work. And that's having personally experienced the process. I can be nothing but supportive of it. It's a great thing. This is my 2 cents.
It's exciting for Waldoboro. I feel it's very exciting for Waldoboro.
One thing I think, Bob, is I think we still need to establish who's on the committee
Well,
and create the committee of the numbers and stuff like that. We need to do that.
you want to do that?
I
Okay.
think we need to do that as a board. So just like any other board that we've ever created, that's how we've discussed it and come up with a plan and.
I was going to leave that to committee and their bylaws.
But we
because
have
the
no-
bylaws.
we don't have no- we don't have a committee,
We would
Bob.
appoint the committee to
But-
establish the
We
bylaws.
gotta create a committee, Bob.
But
We're gonna
the
create a
committee
number.
doesn't create the bylaws.
Right.
We've never had it,
Exactly.
like the Sylvania committee doesn't create the bylaws. The select board would set what
The direction.
the direction and the number of people and who you want to see make it up.
Okay.
That's typically how we've done that.
If we want 5 or 7, I mean, we can refer to Bill or Harbor to who they think could potentially a number of people beyond that board. But I think this board here needs to create that number.
I think the thought was a number not exceeding 11 and it being an odd number. So you'd never have a tie vote. That would be the suggestion.
Once the full committee gets formed. I mean, initially, you're going
to have an application process.
You're only gonna have, even though you only have 3 or 4, they can meet and start working on some of this.
Right, but they have to go through the
The
process.
process, yeah.
Right.
We have a
Make-
process.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like any other board, they
Like
make
any other board.
recommendations to the select board and we can make adjustments from there.
Yeah, they fill in the
I mean, if we
application.
start with 5,
Try it, Bill, I'm
say
trying.
we start with 5.
He fell it.
Bill's picking up what I'm putting down.
Right, you're 100% right.
John,
I'll make a motion to select board. Form a archaeological committee.
is there a second?
Of no more than 11 members.
Of no more than 9 members.
To,
To
what's their purpose? Promote archaeology in the
develop
town of-
archaeology, promote the archaeology within the town.
Archaeology and history,
History, yep.
Okay, that's pretty broad. Okay.
and
Can I add one thing to that motion, John?
are you gonna
That we,
second it?
that we suggest it be called the Origins Committee. Or the Archaeological Origins Committee, something to that effect. So you bring in the idea of pre as well as post
The origins. of
revolutionary
archaeology.
times.
You know, I can't even spell that, but
Can
I'm
you keep
gonna
it
try
simple?
really hard. I
Say-
got it. The Origins Archaeological Committee.
So are you seconding that, Bob?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
AOC.
Yeah, just, something you just said, Ron, you said people are gonna be voting on it.
Who's gonna vote on it?
Nobody's gonna vote.
What is gonna be voted on?
No, it's not gonna be voted.
Well, you said, no, you said that
The
you wanted
committee,
an odd number of committee members so that there wouldn't be any ties. But what would this committee?
the committees will be voting, just like the Sylvania committee, they vote on certain.
They vote to make recommendations,
For
to
the
vote on their
select- for the
minutes.
select board.
They might put together a brochure together, might put some education material together. These are things they need to, as a
Would
committee.
you like me to take
Deliberate.
what I've
Accumulated.
accumulated in the knowledge of what you would like to see and have something written for the next meeting?
That,
I've got a motion on the floor.
There's been a second.
There's your discussion.
Any more
my
discussion?
discussion would be, my suggestion would be to withdraw the motion and the second, so that Julie could define exactly what we're voting for.
So I think you have to let John finish his motion. And you have to vote on that motion before you can,
Motion on the floor and seconded to form the committee. We've had a discussion.
Any more discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? 4-1. Okay,
would you still like me to draw up something so you
Yes.
can look at it at the next meeting? Okay.
I think the person who does the minutes will be able to filter it.
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
Yes.
would you like to make a motion for Julie to have a committee? Description? And how would you put that?
Marching orders.
Marching. Description of what the committee's goals
I
are.
will just
goals
do
are.
that. Why don't I just do that and I'll
Okay,
have it on the
all right.
next meeting?
I just want to make sure that we have. it
Before
on the
John
agenda.
Daigle leaves, I just wanted to say one more thing. The Public Works Department cleared the opposite side of Main Street during the last snowstorm. That's never been done before. We've only ever done one side. We've always done the post office side. And John sent the amazing Blaine, who everybody downtown loves, in his little snow machine, to clear the opposite side of the sidewalks on the opposite side. And I just wanted to say, people noticed and they were very happy.
We came in at midnight Wednesday morning and noticed. I mean, it was that palpable to see all you guys had done. Where's the snow? It wasn't there. Gone.
I'll tell a policeman to call you.
Good job. No, really good job.
All right. All right, we'll move along. The Maine Municipal Bond.
All this is good news. It's from the Maine Municipal Bond Bank. We paid off the bond for the Public Works Garage and we made all timely payments, and $850,000 that was taken out. When, John?
30 years ago.
20 years ago is now paid off, and we got the notice, and that will come off our debt service in our budget. And I was very proud of that.
Try building that building now for that price.
Right. And now we need Bob's motion, I guess.
All right, I get the next item on the agenda, 11.4 is executive session.
Yeah, I move we convene in executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056E.
Is there a second? Second.
And no action will be taken after we adjourn.
All those in favor? Okay.
And executive session, we gotta go.
Oh, we gotta go outside.